In this video we will create the pine trees for our Star Wars Legion Endor project. Start off with balsa wood dowels for the tree trunk. The diameters we used vary between 1.2 cm and 1 cm. The different sizes are meant to create a more believable forest. The length we chose for the trunks vary between 10 to 15 cm for a realistic height. We use a bone saw to cut through the dowels at the various lengths. Balsa wood is fairly brittle and fragile, so keep that in mind when handling it. Measure your length and saw through the wood. To refrain from splitting the wood, you can occasionally turn the wood and start sawing from another angle. After the dowel has been cut, you may want to sand the top to smooth it out. This is not necessary. Now we start with creating base for the bark-like texture. For this we start with a hobby knife to roughly cut away parts of the smooth surface in different depths. You won't have to be very precise about this. In fact, when creating natural terrain features such as this one, it's better not to care about it too much. Remember to take a look at the ends of the tree, so to not skip on these when cutting away the wood. Finally, it should look something like this. You can continue with shaping the rougher bark texture using a small wire brush. Hold it so that you're following the length of the dowel. I like to hold the sides so the steel hairs won't spread outwards, and then move it along the length in rough strokes. Continue this process until you're happy with the results. For some extra details, you may want to cut out one or more holes in the tree. Cut an elliptic shape out of the balsa and pick the shape out. You may want to hold the knife differently than I did to prevent any accidents. The final bark texture should look something like this. Now we're ready to paint. For easier handling, we chose to use a bit of foam board to hold the tree in place whilst spray painting. Take a piece of steel wire or a paper clip and use some pliers to stick it into the bottom of the dowel. For the actual top of the tree, with the canopy, we start by making a hole in the top side of the dowel. This is needed for a barbecue skewer entry point. Next we need some cocoa fiber. This is usually bought in stores during the winter, to protect plants and trees from the frost. We use the cocoa fiber basket, but the material is the same. Start with a pair of scissors by cutting strips in different widths. Next up, cut them in rough squares. Don't be too exact. Then you will cut the squares in circle shapes for the foliage. You see that our circles are not perfectly round and sometimes oval. but that's not a problem as it adds to the natural shape. More important is that you have various sizes ranging from around 7 to 2 centimeters in diameter. We will use a barbecue skewer with a length around 10 to 15 centimeters and add all the cocoa fiber onto it. You will want to go from the thickest end on the bottom to the small end on the top. This will help with the natural tree shape. Clip off the thick end with some pair of pliers. Next, cut away the square edges so it will become a round skewer. Using glue spray found in most hobby stores or dollar stores, we spray the skewer fully. Glue spray is very tacky, so you may want to do this outside or on a piece of paper. After the adhesive spray, start with the smallest width of cocoa fiber. Use the skewer to pierce through the middle. Now you will want to unravel the cocoa fiber using your fingers. This is needed because the fabric is very compact on its own. And this will help fill the tree and create a believable, realistic leafy canopy. Continue these steps until you have around 5 or 6 on there. After overlapping and fully unraveling all the pieces, it will look something like this. For the top, you can add some extra glue spray and then use whatever fiber spilled during the cutting process to form the peak of the tree. Trim away any weird looking fibers. Now we're ready to paint. It is advised to do multiple trees at a time for a quicker progress. We use the Army Painter Leather Brown for the base coat. Shake the can well and preferably spray outside. If you're new to using spray paint, it's important to note that you will want to do light sprays at a time, because the thickness will quickly build up. After spraying, you will want to start flocking and paint the tree trunk in the desired colors. We used Woodland Scenics Coarse Turf Conifer for the base of the foliage. This is our dark undertone. We then added Woodland Scenics Fine Turf Green Grass and Fine Turf Weeds in a mixture of equal parts. Finished by a bit of Fine Turf Earth as a final layer. Again, we use glue spray as an adhesive for adding all these layers. On a small side note, if you don't have a glue spray, you can always use a strong hairspray which will have the same tackiness as glue spray, but it's scented. Start with spraying the adhesive on the tree. Next, you will want to add the conifer coarse turf to the tree. We do this by sprinkling it onto the tree. You can also use a small container filled with the turf and roll it through, although you don't want to press it into the turf too much. Be sure to cover the whole tree, and any excess turf can be reused later on. Again, we spray the tree fully with adhesive, but now we will add the fine turf weeds. This will create the depth and difference in color, which gives it a realistic look. Sprinkle it from the top towards the bottom and repeat if needed. finally add yet another layer of adhesive to add the last layer of fine turf earth. Be gentle with this layer as it's a strong tone, so it will stand out from the green colors. The final product will look something like this. Now we're ready to paint the lower part of the tree, the trunk. We start off with Citadel Agrex Earthshade to lift the details we created earlier and to create some depth. You can add some paint to a palette and water it down in a 50-50 ratio. After the wash is fully dried, we are ready for some highlights. We used Citadel Carrick Stone for this tone and applied it with the dry brushing technique. You can use Citadel large dry brush for this, or use any old brush you have that's fairly rough. Add some paint to the brush and make sure to wipe any excess paint off for the dry brush technique. When dry brushing, it is essential to have a little amount of paint on the brush so that you can paint over the object of your choosing and it will only leave paint on the uppermost edges. Paint in short strokes and you will immediately see results. If you find that there's too much paint, wipe some off. Remember, you can always add more paint if you're not happy with the results. Add some PVA glue or super glue to the top of your tree. Use some plier to add the parts together. For some final details, we will add some small branches spread over the tree trunk. This can be any amount. To recreate small branches, we went outside and picked up some small shrub twigs. Use a small hobby hand drill to drill the holes. Then add some glue to the tree. And then put the stick in the hole. By adding these sticks, you will create a natural looking tree. And this is what the final product will look like. Hey there, thanks for watching this video. We hope you liked it and be sure to subscribe if you did. Hit the notification bell to get updated and feel free to drop a comment below.